I'm Joseph,
And I'm Nick.
and this is Fish Jelly.
CCC.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay,
We're a COVID-free household again.
no more COVID. I have a residual cough.
It's gotten better.
Yeah, yeah. I suspect I'll have it for a while. It feels like it's in there, but people say they have symptoms for weeks after.
Yeah.
So that's that. What do you have to say about COVID?
Resign to your fate. Well,
It didn't kill me, so here we are.
I think the anxiety of it has lessened after having it. Granted, we're both vaxxed and boosted and blah, blah, blah. But, it was a very swiftly moving cold is what it felt like for me.
Well, yeah, I think the anxiety of 2 years of evading to varying degrees, right after a certain point, it was like, well, fuck it. Like,
Well, after Omicron, I think it was very clearly, because everybody started getting it then.
well, yeah. Well, after getting vaccinated, I felt less fear. And then after getting boosted and then going on I went on 2 cruises in the past 5-6 months. So then I felt like, well, I'm doing pretty good if I haven't had it yet. And then the Omicron surge passed, and I still hadn't. Neither of us had it. So it was a little anticlimactic to get it sort of on the tail end of a surge or at but yeah, it felt I couldn't work. Well, there was like the first 4 days once I knew I was positive those were the most rough days.
Yeah, you had at least 2 days where you were in bed almost all day.
Yeah, I slept like all day and all night.
And that I didn't have a day like that.
And then my energy was very low.
And there were 2 days where I didn't run, but that's it.
But it wasn't alarming. I wasn't alarmingly sick. Like I thought I might have to go to the doctor. It just felt like I can't work. Like I can't. And I'm not going to try. So then I think that made it seem more extreme that I had to announce that I'm out of the office because I'm sick. Mm-hmm. Had that not been an issue, I don't think, like a fast moving cold that just made me want to stay in bed all day. And the cough is a lot.
Yeah, the cough was worse for you than me.
Because, my body I had body aches, plus like my abdomen and my lower back were sore from coughing so much. But, ooh.
There she is.
There she is. But moving on, Heidi Klum, we just watched a music video of hers. So she recorded a song which is supposed to be like the theme song for the upcoming season of America's Top Model Germany.
That shit's still going on.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, Kylie Minogue was a judge on like a recent episode.
Oh, okay.
But
missed that.
A guest judge. But Heidi recorded this like song as like a theme song, and then somehow Snoop Dogg got on the track.
As he's wont to do.
As he's wont to do. So, of course, that propelled it into making a music video. And all I have to say about that is I thought it was interesting because, first of all, Heidi Klum is 48 years old.
She looks amazing.
You know what's funny is like that song, if I didn't know who it was, of course, Snoop Dogg's voice is like very recognizable. So if I were like at the mall, if I were at the Beverly Center and walked by like fucking Zara and heard that song playing, it wouldn't occur to me that it's like, it just sounds like everything else.
Sure.
Which is bad because, everything's so generic and musicality seems to take a backseat to whatever's trending. But for all these younger musicians out here making music, they ought to be embarrassed because if Heidi Klum can get on the track and sound just the same with this sort of little raggedy pop song that doesn't sound any different than anything else, and that lady's pushing 50, twice the age of some of these girls, and looks 3 times better.
Yeah.
She had more charisma. Like, just looking at her was captivating.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, she's stunning. And obviously, she's a very successful model, so we're working with a different base. But still, I think it's funny that, the state of music, really, which I'm not super prepared to talk about, except that...
It's sad. Very sad, as someone would say.
But a lot of it has to do with age, I think. Like where we are in our lives, right? We're more open to discovering new things the younger we are.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's been a long time since
Well, I think
it's very rare that I hear a new song I like.
Well, I remember somebody discussing this somewhere about how the trend in music, like that's significant to each era per se, is how different technology and how different sounds are produced, and how everybody's chasing each other's tail. So you get this era of music where everything kind of sounds
Right.
similar, and it's of your youth, right? At a certain point, and then you're always the feelings that you're having listening to this music are distilled in amber, if you
Right.
will, because
Right.
music will never sound, it progresses to something else. And whereas, you get samples and blah, 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 but it will never be that sound that it was in your youth when you were just kind of discovering life, if
Right.
you will. So you're always in a state of mourning, and every older generation complains, right, that music doesn't sound the same anymore.
That's how I feel. And, I cry very easily. Like, I cry at everything. But one way to make me cry really quickly is like playing older music. And it's not even sad music. You can put on Janet Jackson's Pleasure Principle, and if you have me with headphones on by myself, I'll start crying. And I think I'm mourning the feeling.
The loss of an era.
Well, that, but also just the feeling of how excited I was to hear music at that point in my life. And when I said I don't discover new songs, it's because I don't know, like, I don't seek out new music either. So to be fair, I'm not saying all music nowadays is trash. I'm just saying that I'm not in a space where I'm really looking for new things. It's like I have my little playlist of 120 songs that I listen to on repeat. There are artists who I really like. Mm-hmm. I'm very much stuck in the 80s and 90s. Everything I listen to is from the 80s or 90s because that's when I remember really being excited about music. So it's just interesting.
The same things happen with cinema too, because what you see is we're at an age where the people that have the power to generate projects are remaking stuff from their youth, i.e. the 80s.
Well, how many times have we sat and been like, oh, I would love, like, I'm in the mood for like a 90s thriller.
Yes.
Or an 80s horror film. And yeah, I don't, like the nostalgia is what I'm craving, but I don't want someone's interpretation of it. Like, I want the thing.
Right.
Like,
which, to be fair, that's kind of why I liked the Batman, because it felt like it was doing its own thing, but very much using the tools of a 90s serial killer thriller.
Well, speaking of music, today is Jennifer Hudson Day in Chicago.
Oh.
What do you think of when you think of Jennifer Hudson?
I think of I do it for the thrill, even if it kills.
Dangerous.
Of course, Dreamgirls, weight loss.
I think about how
Effie.
I think about how strong her voice is, but she never looks like she's struggling. Mm-hmm. I also find myself often watching clips from what's X Factor? No.
Where she's the judge?
The Voice.
The Voice.
She's the judge on The Voice. And there are a lot of videos of her sort of singing, like in between scenes or when they're setting up for new whatever. And just like her ability to just start singing is wild.
Yeah, it's...
Because then you see other artists who, like, you ask them to sing and it's like a production. Mm-hmm. Like someone like Mariah Carey just doesn't sing.
Well...
It's always like she'll sing a little snippet that she's comfortable with, or she'll spend 20... Even like the carpool karaoke is like, everything she does is very produced. A lot of these singers, everything they sing is like, well, it has to be the right this.
Well, your vocal cords change, though, and Mariah's vocal cords have changed.
Sure, but a lot of artists don't have this ability. Like Jennifer Hudson can just sing.
That's true.
How many countless nighttime talk shows where they'll say like, can you sing a little something? And she'll just belt out a standard. Yeah,
but I think of a lot of the movies she's been in, many of which I think fall under the shadow of Dreamgirls. But The Incredible Defeat of Mr. and Pete, or what was she in recently? Oh, Respect.
I think she did what she could with it. I don't think she did a great job playing Aretha Franklin.
No,
she sang the hell out of those songs, but
yes, that
acting left me wanting.
Well, she you leave feeling she's done an Aretha caricature, mm-hmm. Almost. But to be fair, they reduced Aretha to a PG-13 life, as I said before, and nobody has a PG-13 life. So
Wow.
That's what that film is.
I feel like our secret movie, that character had a PG-13.
Yes, she did.
So we'll get to that later. Okay, moving on to RuPaul's Drag Race, season 14, episode 9.
Okay.
Do you recall what the challenge was?
It was a drag con panel.
Right. So the topic was men's. So
Which sounds like Menses to me, but I guess the drag queens didn't. Nobody made a joke about Menses, but whatever.
So the queens, so the mini challenge was they had to do like one of those photobomb photo shoots where they look all ugly and crazy and then take a photo that gets superimposed onto like something else. And Willow Pill won that challenge. I
hated that challenge. They just.
Well, it just requires
nothing.
It requires nothing. Like, well, what skill was utilized here except being silly?
Goofy,
Yeah. But Willow Pill won, so she was able to pick her team. So the remaining contestants split into 2 teams, and they each had to basically like do like a morning talk show monologue where they talk about the topic of men. And I thought they did a pretty good job. The team that Willow picked, I thought they did an excellent job.
Yes, they did.
Talking about like fatherhood, and the other team, which was led by Bosco as the moderator, they talked more about like toxic masculinity, and that team had Georges and
Jasmine Kennedy.
Jasmine Kennedy. And Georges and Jasmine Kennedy.
And Diabetti,
who, whatever. Well, can we just mention again how much I can't stand Diabetti?
I cannot either. I just want to put her on mute. Shut the fuck up.
Wow. Like, it's been a minute since I really can't stand a contestant. There's something about her.
The face, the words coming out of her mouth.
The way she moves her mouth. Yeah.
It would behoove you to be kind, girl.
That would be a queen who, because I've met a number of queens, and even though I don't care for them, sometimes it's just like, oh, hi, whatever. I don't need to tell you how I feel about you.
Right.
If I met Diabetti, I would tell her a thing or two.
I would just turn around. I don't need to look at you.
But anyway, so the winner of the challenge was Bosco. She's very funny.
Yeah.
Very smart.
I like Bosco a lot.
And she wisely chose to infuse a lot of references that she knew RuPaul would like. And I thought, like, yeah, that's the key. That's the key. Like, RuPaul's a 60-year-old man who's obsessed with, like, older pop culture references.
But didn't know Dale Buzio?
Yeah, Bosco didn't know who Dale Bozzi was. But, yeah, so Bosco wins. And then in the bottom are Jasmine Kennedy and Georges, who are the 2 dancing queens of the season. And they lip sync to Etta James' version of Something's Got a Hold on Me. Mm-hmm. And I thought they did a great job. I think Georges did a better job than Jasmine, but RuPaul lets both of them stay. It's a double Shantae. This season seems really long. They've already had the first 2 episodes, no one went home, because then they brought everyone back. And then we've already had an episode where there were no bottoms. Now we have 3 episodes where no one went home. And then we have a 4th episode where no one goes home. Uh-huh. And we still have that damn golden ticket floating around. Yeah. So that means someone else is going to get saved at some point.
It's a saga. Oh, also Jasmine's silhouette. Well, I thought she looked interesting, but she was kind of like a sexy Gumby.
The runway theme was shoulder pads. Uh-huh. And I really like Jasmine's look. Georges looked like Selena mixed with
Prince, as she said.
Prince. She looked fantastic, but she didn't have shoulder pads. Willow Pill also didn't have shoulder. Willow Pill looked like a character from Rugrats to me. It was cute.
I was thinking like SLC Punk.
Oh, and then I thought Diabetti looked silly. She looked like something. What's that movie with Lori Petty with Tank Girl?
Yes, with Ice-T.
Yes, I thought she looked like something from Tank Girl.
I hated her stomp down the runway. I just want a hook to come out and yank her off the stage. Like
Showtime at the Apollo. Poor thing. Okay, so that's Drag Race for UK versus the World.
Oh, but I will say Bosco, that is somebody who is very smart and creative, and just the way that, in the confessional speaks about everybody else. It's like, very kind and like curious. Like and praises other people. You know, kind of like Raja O'Hara was when she returned as well. It's just like the graciousness of it is very appealing.
Well, and humble too, because he talks about like how he works as a barista, and he just seems very authentic.
Where
and
diabetes like, I deserve this.
But I think that's also people who are confident in their skill set. Like, this is what I do, and it is what it is.
And if you don't like it, you don't like it.
And there's no need to tear other people down just because I don't excel in this thing. But yeah, so far he's doing great. Okay, so episode 5 of UK versus the World. The main challenge was for the queens to record a verse to RuPaul's song London.
I don't even remember.
Yeah. And there are only 5, I don't even remember how many queens are left. It was Bag of Chips, Blue Hydrangea. Oh, there are 5.
Yes.
Bag of Chips, Blue Hydrangea, Janie Jacquet, and then Jujubee.
This is why I blocked it, because they eliminated the one I liked, that I've come to like the most.
So I forgot Mo Hart. But in the top are Mo Hart and Jujubee. I do think they did a good job.
Sure.
I do think they did a good job. I thought for the runway, the theme was work of art. I thought they looked great as well. Jujubee looked beautiful.
But
so
wasn't really... Well, the others like were taking an artist and riffing on their style, and she was more of...
She did an interpretation of like a piece, like an architectural structure.
Yes.
I thought that was kind of weak, but she looked fantastic. So Jujubee wins the lip sync against Mo Hart, and she chooses Janie Jacquet to go home.
Who I thought looked the best in that Maryland Warhol, but
yeah, but she didn't want to send home Bag of Chips or Blue Hydrangea.
See, this is why like we are so indoctrinated with fake ass shit, because you had Bag of Chips clearly manipulating them with these teary things about how much she respects them and loves them and wants to compete alongside them, when somebody with the dignity of like Janie Jacquet says, you know, is not going to stoop to that level, and then the reactions are like, oh, she doesn't want it enough, you know.
I think Bag of Chips should go home. She clearly doesn't want to do what is asked of her. She's like, and then also it's like, if you're so, she likes to say how she's like so famous and she's being funny, but it's like, if you don't want to compete and like alter the way you do things, then don't get on the show, and certainly don't think you're going to win.
Well, right, but
that being said, she is very funny and she is a good entertainer. And to be honest, I feel like the person who should have gone home this episode is the person who won. Jujubee should have been sent home a while ago. But anyway, Janie Jacquet's gone, so the top 4 are Bag of Chips, Blue Hydrangea, Mo Hart, and Jujubee.
And my interest is dwindling.
Super dwindling. Who do you think will win?
I think Blue should win.
I think Blue should win. Yeah. If Jujubee wins...
I wouldn't be mad if Mo Hart wins.
I think Mo Hart's done okay, but I think of all of them, Blue Hydrangea's been the most versatile and the most successful at like coming back and really showing like she's a very talented...
Jujubee and Bag of Chips,
Well, Bag of Chips is good at what she does, but it's very limited. And then Jujubee, I just don't understand. She has a great personality, but I don't think she makes for good TV.
No.
So I'm so confused, and her looks have not been that great.
But you know, when you're available.
Oh, okay. I need to step away for 1 minute, but you can talk about Blue of Moon.
Oh God, no! I want to talk about. Well, you're like here. What do you?
Well, I can hear you. Talk about it for a minute. I just need a minute. I won't wash my hands. Go ahead. Blue of Moon. Who wrote it? I can hear you.
You can hear, but yeah, you're not. Well, we were going to talk about things we were reading. What are you reading?
Well, why don't you start with what you're reading, and I'll tell you what I'm reading.
God, you're difficult. Georges Bataille, who's probably best known for his piece of erotic literature, Story of the Eye, which I remember reading in college. His unfinished novella when he died was Ma Mère, which was made into a pretty good NC-17 rated film with Isabelle Huppert, also starring Louis Garrel, and we have a very nice poster for that in our home. But I picked up a copy of this book he wrote called Blue of Noon. It was written in 1935 and kind of predates what would happen in Nazi-era Germany, but wasn't published until 1957. So it plays like this odd, as it says, set against the backdrop of Europe's slide into fascism. And it very much plays like this is this sexually hedonistic, down-and-out character, bounces back and forth between cities, and ends up in Barcelona before the world collapses around him. But I love the quote on the back that says, "It's a novel torn between identifying with history's victims and being seduced by the monstrous glamour of its terrible victors." But what really drew me in is it said it's one of the 20th century's greatest nihilist works. And I didn't really, I find Georges Bataille more of a hedonist than a nihilist, because there's always the promise of pleasure in what I've read of his. But yeah, it's a slim...
You finished the book?
Yeah. And then I just started...
what are some things that popped out?
It's just really this man's description as he is kind of slowly losing his mind, and his relationship with 3 different women, one of whose name is Dirty.
Oh.
It's interesting. I think even the story behind the delayed publication is even more interesting with the authors afterward. But yeah, Georges Bataille is I collect some of his books. He has a set of essays about eroticism that I haven't read, that I'm very interested in reading. I don't know if you missed it. He wrote that film there, Ma Mère.
I heard you.
Okay. And then, I started Patricia Highsmith's Deep Water in anticipation of Adrian Lyne's upcoming remake, which is finally set.
Is that about a shark?
No. It's set to be released in, I think, 2 weeks on Hulu with Ben Affleck. Adrian Lyne is a favorite of mine. He did Fatal Attraction, of course, and Jacob's Ladder, Foxes, Flashdance, but hasn't directed a film since Unfaithful, the 2002 film with Diane Lane, which, of course, is a...
Who's the man in Unfaithful? Richard Gere?
Richard Gere and Halle Berry's baby daddy.
I've seen that movie.
Yeah, it's great, but that's also...
I think I've seen that movie with my brother.
Really? So, yeah, I mean, this is 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think we were sitting at the condo, and he was there with me. That's probably that's so weird. I don't think I've ever watched a movie with him besides that one.
Besides Unfaithful. So Adrian...
Wow, weird.
Well, that's a remake of a Claude Chabrol film starring Stéphane Audran, which I had a movie night back when we lived in West Hollywood for, An Unfaithful Wife. I think it's 1969. What?
Nothing.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So films released we didn't cover. There aren't many. The Lucy and Desi doc.
Well, we watched it late, but...
we watched it late, and then you still want to record a video about
I thought it was really well done.
I enjoyed it.
I had avoided it at Sundance because I'm like, Amy Poehler doing this, right after Being the Ricardos. Am I interested in a 2.5-hour doc about Lucy and Desi?
It was 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that.
It went by very quickly.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I will say, like 2/3 of the Lucy and Desi doc, I feel like much of that encompasses what we saw in Being the Ricardos.
Yes, but it was interesting because Aaron Sorkin collapses a lot of things into, which I wish I'd watched the documentary
So I
first.
think they would complement each other well. And they're both available on Amazon Prime, right?
I think so, yeah.
So, I mean, I would recommend watching both together. But the highlight of this documentary is we get tapes of Lucy and Desi talking. So it's mostly Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's voice describing things, and then we get the visuals, which of course there's a huge bank of assets for these two very popular entertainers. So it didn't feel wanting. It definitely felt very comprehensive. We do get their daughter.
Their daughter speaks a lot, yeah.
She speaks a lot, which I don't know that I needed, but...
I thought that was fun. You can always tell when people... You read between the lines, right?
Yeah.
And she was closer to her dad. But I found it really moving, and I got kind of emotional a couple times, strangely watching it. But, anything about this powerful woman that, kind of beat the odds and changed the landscape of our culture through television.
Well, and I thought it was... I think it was moving to see this woman talk, or hear her talk about how when she chose to marry Desi... She wasn't thinking like, I'm this white woman marrying this brown man.
Right.
She said she understood that there would be some complications, but it really wasn't. She wasn't preoccupied by it. So it just felt like she fell in love with this man and did what her heart told her to do. And then I don't think I fully realized that for the first like 8 years of their marriage, he wasn't around.
He was on tour, yeah.
Because he was on tour and serving in the military.
Yeah.
So, and then her getting pregnant, losing a baby, getting pregnant again, all of that. Like, just what a fascinating life. And then I guess I didn't realize how quickly, it's a very short period of time where they became super popular and then bought the studio and then merged with.
They bought RKO.
Yeah.
And then she merged with Paramount after she took control. Yeah.
That's not a very long period. It's like a 5-year period from when I Love Lucy started popping to when they bought RKO.
Well, and it's so surreal now because we live very close to where they were.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, no, you say you still want to make a video, so I guess we can. But other releases are
that Leighton Meester film.
Then
who I haven't thought of.
The Weekend Away.
Years. Yeah, and this Amanda Knox style thriller we didn't watch.
We might, maybe.
Sure.
I don't know. Okay, moving on to things we watched for fun. I did want to mention, we watched an episode. Netflix has a series called Worst Roommate Ever.
Which is Blumhouse produced?
I believe they're affiliated. Yeah, which is such a weird... Well, I guess it works because the title of the series caught my attention. And then I heard a snippet of episode 1, which is called Call Me Grandma. Mm-hmm. So you and I watched it.
It was fascinating. Yeah.
It was riveting. And I'm not going to review it except to say it's about a woman who...
is a serial killer.
She's a serial killer. And she basically... I mean, she had a long history of conning people. And her gig was that she would sedate them with like a date rape type drug. And then steal all their shit. And it was men and women. But at the later part... which she was masquerading as like a senior citizen when she was only like 50 because she looked kind of dowdy. And she fooled all these people into thinking she ran like a group home for the elderly. Mm-hmm. So she was taking in all of these old people and basically slowly killing them by like drugging them and then just continually collecting their social security.
Yeah, and she buried them in the backyard.
And buried them in her damn backyard in Sacramento. And she got caught because there was a social worker who had sent a client to her, and this social worker was, I guess doing her due diligence and really keeping up with one of her clients and kept pushing like there's something not right. My guy wouldn't just disappear. Right. And that was the beginning of the end of this lady getting caught. But I would recommend... I
felt bad for that social worker because she felt guilty.
She seemed like she cared about what she did.
Well,
she felt guilty.
She pushed him into this home. But, how would she know?
Well, she pushed him because he said he wanted to be somewhere, and then he did tell her he liked it.
Yeah.
The missing man suffered from schizophrenia, and he had received a lot of like ECT treatments. So, it's difficult to tell sometimes if people are just agreeing with you or they're actually making conscious, decisions. So, you can't blame the social worker, and I did feel for her that she felt so guilty.
It reminded me of a horror hag movie from the 70s starring Ruth Gordon and Geraldine Page called Whatever Happened to Aunt Alice.
Oh, that Whoever Slew Auntie Rue. No.
Yeah, well, that's Shelley Winters.
I know.
We had that cycle of horror hag movies, but that one's worth watching, especially for those, two supremely great actresses. But Ruth Gordon is looking for her friend, and Geraldine Page runs this farm where she's burying old women she kills on her property.
Moving on, you watched Passion Fish.
Yeah, I think I finished it right before we filmed last week's podcast, but we didn't really get to talk about it. But, it was a really moving film, 1992. John Sayles, who...
Alfre Woodard is in it.
Alfre Woodard's...
I think I've seen Passion Fish.
Okay. Alfre Woodard's fantastic in it. As this, she's a sober nurse that's taking care of Mary McDonnell, that was her second Oscar nod, and who's this soap opera star who is hit by a taxi and she becomes paraplegic. But, really great role. John Sayles, he wrote Alligator, for instance. He wrote a lot of screenplays to fund his own projects, as I mentioned last week. And he has such a fantastic body of work, especially for women. But I put it on because I felt like watching Alfre Woodard, and she's Oscar nominated for, what's the film? It's from like 1983. It's called Cross Creek, I think. Mary Steenburgen's the star, and I found it, but then I was like, do I want to watch a biography on Marjorie Keenan Rawlings, the woman who wrote The Yearling, or do I want to watch Passion Fish? So that's why.
Moving on, you watched Malice.
Yes, which I waited for years to watch, but you're an Alec Baldwin fan, so we own a copy of it. Young Nicole Kidman and Bill Pullman. You know, it satisfies that craving of this 1990s thriller. It has all kinds of tangents. There's a serial killer played by Tobin Bell who kills Goop, a.k.a. Gwyneth Paltrow, as a young teenager. There are a lot of things to love in it. But it did feel also a little bit all over the place. Directed by Harold Becker. Who did he do Geely? I want to say he did Geely. Interesting. And, of course, Alec Baldwin's famous I'm God speech is a lot of fun. But, yeah, I did quite like it.
Lastly, Days of Wine and Roses.
Another film I've owned for years and years and years. I put it on a couple mornings ago. I think you were in and out.
Of consciousness?
No, of the room I was watching it in. Thank you. God. Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick is a pair of alcoholics, and he becomes sober and she doesn't want to. And it basically plays like a series of vignettes strung together almost of their alcoholism. But it was interesting. Jack Lemmon, I think, really gives a great performance. It was directed by Blake Edwards, who, was married to Julie Andrews, did most of if not all of the early Pink Panther films, as well as Victor Victoria. I don't know if Edwards was maybe the best person for this, but yeah, it's worth a watch.
All right, moving on to projects of interest. I was going to, well, you can start first. Fede Alvarez.
Fede, okay. So, Noah Hawkins is creating an alien television series.
Oh.
Of which Sigourney Weaver's not involved. Because, why include the most interesting part of that universe? And then it was just announced, I think 2 days ago, that Fede Alvarez, who directed the Evil Dead remake and that film Don't Breathe, with Ridley Scott producing, is making his own separate alien film.
Okay.
Which, again, has nothing to do with Ripley Sigourney Weaver. Which, whatever. I think I'm just tired. So I'm not really even interested in that, but...
and then something I, Captain.
Yeah, Matteo Garrone, Italian director, has commenced a new project called I, Captain. I don't know anything about it, but Garrone, is now a Cannes darling, thanks to films like Gomorrah, Tale of Tales, Dogman. So he's automatically somebody of interest.
Lastly, I wanted to talk about the Madonna biopic.
With all these actresses trying out?
Oh my God. Well, so then Madonna, this was like early last year. She was posting on social media a lot with her and Diablo Cody writing this screenplay.
Who she fired.
Yes. And then Diablo Cody, I guess, quit or was fired.
Or whatever, yeah.
And then now there's a new screenwriter who I don't know named Aaron Wilson.
Okay.
But I was reading that the Hollywood Reporter says that they're casting for the lead. And like some of the people who are interested, who have already auditioned, are Florence Pugh, Julia Garner, Sydney Sweeney, Barbie Ferreira. I don't even know who that is. Alexa Demi, Odessa Young, Emma Laird, BB Rexa. I know that's a singer.
Yeah.
And then Sky Ferreira. I don't know any of these people. Well, Julia Garner's from
From Ozark. Yeah,
Ozark.
I finished the latest bit of Ozark.
Oh,
too.
we didn't talk about Ozark. Well, you only finished half of the season.
Well, it's
because the other part is
that shit is getting over the top.
Yeah, we probably should have talked about that. Maybe next week. I don't know. Okay. But I was reading that the audition process is pretty intense because they have to like do all this choreography and like performances, which I think is funny because of course Madonna would want people to perform her shit better than she can. I don't know. I can only imagine how difficult Madonna is, particularly with something like choosing who's going to play her.
I would say it's not going to be worth it.
I think this will be a big deal.
I think it's going to be a big deal, but I feel like whoever that lead actress is, this could be Showgirls Elizabeth Banks killer.
Or Mommy Dearest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Faye Dunaway.
I don't know how good of an idea it's going to be.
Well, I think in 2022... I don't know that it would hurt an actor's career because this will obviously get like just major distribution and it'll have a great soundtrack because obviously they're going to have all the Madonna shit. So I don't think that whomever plays it will hurt their career. But I think this could be a shit show.
Yeah.
And then I was reading that basically the film sort of culminates with the Blonde Ambition tour, like the 1990.
Okay.
Which kind of makes sense because that was sort of the peak of her popularity.
And we're still very clear of when she started to alter how she looks, so...
Yeah, and then of course if they keep going, they'd have to probably cast someone else, or it would look crazy. So I'm into it being sort of contained. All right, moving on. There's one entry in the obituary section. Good old Johnny Brown passed away. Johnny Brown, I know mainly as playing the Superintendent Bookman on Good Times. It wasn't announced how he passed, but he was in his 80s. Yeah, I have fond memories of course, Good Times, which I've watched every episode, primarily because Janet Jackson's in it. But the show's great. Esther Roll is Florida Evans. Jimmy Walker is JJ. And then, of course, Walona, played by... oh, my God. How did I just forget her name?
With the apostrophe in it, too.
Oh, my God. We have to say her name. But anyway, yeah, good old Bookman passed. I remember they would call him Buffalo Butt or Booger.
Oh, Jeanette Dubois.
Yeah, Jeanette Dubois. She would call him Bookman or Booger. And then I always remember the episode where he didn't have any money, so he was eating dog food. But yeah, Bookman's gone.
Funny how dog food came up in several episodes of
Good Times.
Good Times. Because what's the actress that plays Aunt Song in Crooklyn? Isn't she feeding her family
dog food as well? Food? Oh God. All right, but we can move on. So the secret film today I chose, and it was The Preacher's Wife,
1996,
directed by Penny Marshall.
Yeah, it's a remake.
Laverne and Shirley. Was she Laverne or Shirley?
She was Laverne, right? Oh, I don't
know. She also
know.
directed like A League of Their Own. And...
Oh yeah, which is a favorite from my childhood. But this was between her films Renaissance Man, which I never saw, and is it Riding in Cars with Boys?
Well, The Preacher's Wife stars Courtney B. Vance, Denzel E. Washington, and the late, great Whitney Houston.
And you know it's a remake.
And it is a remake of a 1940s film.
1947, The Bishop's Wife, which starred Cary Grant and Loretta Young, which I've never seen, never really cared for Loretta Young. Directed by Henry Koster, who you have seen some works of Henry Koster, because I know you've seen Harvey, where Jimmy Stewart sees the imaginary rabbit.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Which is kind of a magical movie, but I've never seen The Bishop's Wife, but yeah.
So, The Preacher's Wife, I did not care for this movie.
Same.
I think that it is poorly cast. I think it should have been updated for the 90s.
Well, ostensibly it is, right? But then the dynamics and the mechanics of everything, it feels like the 50s.
Okay, let's just... Okay, the basic story is Courtney B. Vance plays a reverend of a church. He's married to Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston's dad used to run this church, but he passed, and now Courtney's taken over. But the church is struggling. Of course, they need more money. They always need more money. The church is breaking down. They're having to like shut down the after-school programs, the children's programs, whatever. In the backdrop, there is this real estate developer played by Gregory Hines, who is like has this master plan community that's being advertised all over TV. And he's proposing that the church move to this new development, which is not near where it currently is.
No, but he's also going to create it like a mega church.
He's going to create a mega church. There's going to be all these amenities and services, and people can live there, and they'll have access to all new things. Okay, well, Courtney prays to God to help him, and the next day, an angel shows up, played by Denzel Washington. And he tells Courtney, I'm here, you called for me, you were looking for a miracle, so here I am. Which I just think is so corny, like, you're a fucking reverend who tells everyone to have this blind faith in this religion and this book. And then, like, someone comes saying, like, I heard your prayer, I'm here to help you. And he couldn't be more resistant. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, you're crazy, this is not... I think that's dumb. But anyway, Denzel's this angel... And I don't really know what he does, except he sort of injects himself into everyone's life and makes it better.
Well, there are a set of rules.
There's a set of rules. The main one is that he can't do anything you could do yourself. But then he does perform other little miracles, kind of.
Yeah, it's not really.
No, okay. So ultimately, of course it ends the way you would think, in that the church gets to stay. Because we find out Gregory Hines. Oh, another big problem I have with the film is Gregory Hines' character is supposed to be like a villain, but he doesn't seem that villainous.
He's not. No, he's for the progression of the community.
He's trying to progress. Yeah, he's trying to develop the community and get people, like, move them up and out.
Yeah, it's not like this, like some white developers coming in to gentrify.
And remove these people from their homes. He's trying to give them, like, nicer homes and give them more amenities. And we find out that Gregory Hines' character actually owns the church, because it was having problems and he took over the mortgage.
Yeah.
So it's like he's trying to help the church, and he didn't even want to let everyone know that, like, actually I own this shit and I could kick you all out.
Right.
He was trying to find an alternative for them.
Yeah.
So I think that that character is not well attenuated to what I'm supposed to think is happening, because it seems like he's kind of the angel of the story. He's trying to help these dead people. But ultimately, Denzel gets to Gregory Hines and shows him the light. So at the 11th hour, on Christmas Day, Gregory Hines tells Courtney B. Vance, like, call me on Monday, we can talk about the mortgage. Basically, I'm not going to tear down the church, you don't have to move.
Yes, so, and keep your neighborhood in the dark ages.
Yeah. Basically, y'all can't have Whole Foods and Starbucks. Like, okay.
So what, well, not that progression should be measured in, consumer culture per se, but
but there's one scene where he's like, but I'm going to build tennis courts, and he's like, well, they don't want to play, and it's like,
like they don't play tennis. Well, they haven't had the opportunity.
Yeah, maybe if the community had tennis courts and swimming pools that they felt were theirs, maybe they would. Like, why would you not want them to have that? Like
the Williams sisters had to play in some, dilapidated tennis court because that's all that was available to them. What if, to me, this film really is a metaphor for what religion does, is just keeps people in the dark.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to go through my notes. So we were reading, because during Whitney's last interview with Oprah, was it her last or her second to last?
It was 2009.
I think that was her second to last interview. Yeah. Because she was in the really pretty brown dress, and her last interview, she looked good, but she sounded really bad because she performed a song. Anyway, in that second to last interview with Oprah, Whitney shared that during the filming of The Preacher's Wife, she was high every day.
Yeah, she was taking something. Yeah.
So immediately we see, like, the first scene with Whitney is she's singing. And I just thought, boy, Whitney stays sweaty. That lady was known for sweating. And I'm assuming...
Yeah, when she performs, yeah.
But she's just standing there. So I wonder... That was always a joke about Whitney, right? Everyone who plays her in Drag Race, Snatch Game, fucking Mad TV, anyone who ever does Whitney, you have to do the sweating.
Sure.
And I thought, damn, even in a damn movie, she's sweating.
Well, because she's working,
That lady was standing there lip syncing. Why is she sweating?
Oh, sure.
I think it's the drugs that make her sweat. But, okay. Jennifer Lewis is like a very strong spice.
Yes.
She is a very strong spice.
You don't want too much cardamom.
You do not want too much Jennifer Lewis in your movie. And
well, I don't know. Jackie's Back is pretty damn funny.
Oh, I'm due to... You know what? We should actually do an episode of Jackie's Back.
Jackie's Back is pretty good. And she's front and center there.
Yes, but that's where she wants to be.
Entendre.
I think because she's front and center in Jackie's Back, she tones it down a little bit sometimes.
She does, but it's
there are highs and lows.
Jennifer Lewis is like, you are not cutting any of this dialogue I have.
I think because Jennifer Lewis is accustomed to playing a supporting character, she's developed this sort of way about her that's like, no matter what, you are going to hear me.
Yep. She plays to the back of the room.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. She's just so damn loud. But so that's distracting.
It's time to make the Christmas baskets.
Yes. So
when she picks up the phone.
Oh, yes. Hello? No. Mm-hmm. So it's weird because we have Jennifer Lewis, we have Loretta Devine, who are both so magnetic on screen.
Yes, and can do magic with the supporting part that, like, if you're just reading that dialogue, like, what a throwaway part, but...
Yeah, if I had to cast a movie, I would definitely be like, if I can get Jennifer Lewis and Loretta Devine, I would definitely find something to do with them, because they definitely add a lot with very little.
Oh yeah, Loretta's introduction to Denzel, like that could have been flat as hell, and she
made it a lot.
Like it's alive.
It's the scene where Denzel introduces himself, because Loretta Devine is Courtney B. Vance's assistant, and then Denzel comes in saying he's there to assist, so she thinks she's losing her job. And yes, that scene could have played very flat, but Loretta is just, she does a lot with whatever
little,
she's given.
Yeah.
So I think the casting of those two ladies was fine, except Jennifer Lewis is cast as Whitney Houston's mother.
And she's only 6 years older.
And she is only 6 years older, and she does not look
older
than Whitney Houston.
From the moment you see Jennifer Lewis in the pews, like, oh, she looks really good.
Yeah. I just thought that was so weird. But it's funny because Jennifer's character smokes a lot of cigarettes. Like, I don't understand.
Like in the house.
In the house, like preparing food, putting food on the table with a cigarette in her hand.
Yeah, it's like, what year is this?
Right,
but I guess the 90s, that was normal.
Okay. I always feel bad talking about children, but this little boy... well, you know, because they're just kids. But the little boy...
making his debut.
What's his character's name? Jeremiah. So Justin Pierre Edmond. Mm-hmm. That little boy couldn't act.
Nope. Mm-mm.
He could not act. Bless his heart. Yeah. It was kind of crunchy when he was on screen. Like, oh, get him off.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a scene where they're in the church and Whitney is like working on like the Christmas production, like the nativity, whatever musical number. And then Loretta Devine is downstairs in another room doing Bible study. And then we see the furnace in the basement, or the boiler, like about to explode.
Yeah.
That scene was fucking chaos.
It was, and it also was like, every time you saw the boiler, I'm like, oh, it's going to become Stephen King's The Mangler.
I really just didn't like that these characters just seem so incompetent. Like Courtney B. Vance doesn't know how to run this business of a church, and then his wife seems to not know how to support him properly, and then you have like Loretta Devine's in this room with these kids, and you hear all this banging, and it doesn't occur to you to stop what you're doing. I really hated that scene. It was just pure chaos. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Whitney and Courtney B. Vance don't have any chemistry.
No.
And you said you also read that Whitney said that initially...
Whitney didn't want to do this. So I read that Denzel initially wanted Julia Roberts. Oh, no. And then when they thought they could get Whitney, they had to beg her for a while because she said that, one, she didn't want to look like a housewife. And two, she didn't think she wasn't attracted to nice, kind men like Reverend Biggs.
And it is so obvious that, I mean, you know, who knows her state of mind being under the influence, but Whitney and Courtney have zero chemistry.
They don't, and the fact that you have like the much more suave and, you know,
arguably more handsome.
Courtney B. Vance is a handsome man.
Courtney B. Vance is a handsome man, and he seems, you know, he seems like a great guy.
But then you get Denzel in there.
But then Denzel's characters, I don't know that I think he's so much more sexy than Courtney B. Vance, but like you said, he seems more suave.
And Whitney's response...
And he has a little bit of swag.
And Whitney's response... Yes, he has more swag. And Whitney's response to him... She seems to come a little bit more alive on screen.
Right. So then it almost seems like, is there going to be like a romantic thing between... And then we find out in the very end that Denzel did have romantic feelings for Whitney.
Because he has no backstory, but we learn very loosely that he used to be a human 30 years ago and is glad to be back on Earth for an assignment, I guess. But it's, you know, that's why these religious, angelic themed movies... You know, you gave him all the biological components of being a human, like eating pizza. So sexuality would also step in there.
Yeah, what did
he
do with his boner thinking about Whitney?
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is Denzel's kind of creepy in this movie.
He is. He's doing that Denzel thing.
Because he does that Denzel thing where he kind of is like tilts his head and looks at things sort of intently and...
Like he's going in for the kill.
Yes, and then knowing that there is some chemistry between Denzel and Whitney, like that he seems like he likes her. I thought it was a little creepy. Okay, more cringy scenes. So Whitney and her husband Courtney are supposed to go to like a blues club or a jazz club,
which
on a night
is
out.
So awkward because it's orchestrated by Denzel without either of those two communicating.
Right. And then ultimately, Courtney says, I can't go. Why don't you take her, Denzel? So Denzel and Whitney go to this blues club. First of all, the music that's playing at this jazz club is like, what did we say it was?
Elevator Christmas jazz.
It was like elevator Christmas music, and then people are dancing to it, which seems so awkward. Then all of a sudden, Lionel Richie pops up. And then, you know, it's fun to see him because I think that's right when he got his new face. So he looks good.
He looks good.
And he is like telling Whitney, I haven't seen you in so long. Like, why don't you get up and sing? And we'll talk about the singing later. But Whitney gets up and sings a song. And then her and Denzel, they have a great night. They come home late. Courtney B. Vance gets upset that they went to the place where they proposed.
Yeah, he's so bothered by that.
He's so bothered by it, but it's like, she invited you, you didn't want to go, and then you told her to go with old boy. Like, this seems dumb.
And all they did was talk about you.
Another plot point is that Reverend Courtney B. Vance is trying to help like a community member, this young black man. He gets arrested for like armed robbery, but he didn't do it. And when he first shows up in court, Courtney B. Vance's character doesn't really speak up. But then now he feels inspired. So on like the sentencing date or whatever, he shows up in the courtroom, and that was so damn crunchy. He just walks in, he starts shouting at the judge, talking about, well, I serve a higher
court than you,
so I'm going to talk, and ultimately gets the boy out of going to jail.
That
was so stupid.
It's so dumb. It's not in reality. Just like when they come back from the jazz club, and it's like in the real world, Denzel would be cuckolding Courtney B. Vance.
yeah, it almost seems like that. Okay, I have one main point I want to get to, but another one is just knowing that Whitney was like high during the filming of this. There's a scene where she has to pour hot chocolate.
Oh, yes.
And that lady is pouring hot chocolate, and you can see all the hot chocolate spilling all over.
It is. It's going everywhere.
And they didn't even try to refilm it.
Nope.
It was just like, well, then they cut to a different take with her holding the tray, and then there's nothing on it. But
just like there's a scene where she's talking about she's not going to let her kid eat sugar cereal.
Oh,
it's like, you both can't be hopped up.
Yeah, you both can't be all jittery. Okay, my final note is I just think the story feels dated. It feels like something that would be in the 50s. Like, first of all, hearing Whitney, you know, of course you get Whitney Houston in your movie in the 90s and you're going to have her sing. So then we hear her singing and her voice is not 100%. It's more like 75%.
She still sounds great.
She sounds, you know, Whitney at 75% still sounds better than most people, but it's not Whitney as we really know her. So it's like you have this woman singing in a way that just doesn't match her personality because she seems kind of like this meek housewife with, you know, like the way she's dressed and her hair and her attitude about how her husband's behaving. But then when she sings, it's like, oh, you have a little something to you. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that worked well.
Well, just like how she always is very well put together in this, and then the nightclub scene where she descends from the stairs. You know, that should be where it's like, oh, this woman is hiding herself because she feels neglected. But it's like she looks good in every scene.
Exactly. It doesn't play right because Whitney looks great the moment we see her. So then her having her transformation to go out is just like, oh, well, she's wearing like she's wearing a tight black dress, but she's also wearing very tight clothes when in the beginning when she's tucking her son in. So we can see that she has this like unnatural body and that she's unnaturally beautiful. Mm-hmm. So then you just put her in like a French twist with a black dress and we're supposed to be wowed. Like, no, it's Whitney Houston on screen, looking fantastic. I think it should have been... the role of Whitney and Courtney's character should have been played by younger actors. And they should have, to make it more modern, they should have leaned into this younger married couple taking over the dad's church, and they're sort of torn between the secular world and their religious beliefs, and that's creating tension. And then this angel comes and tries to show them how they can sort of walk the line between the two and still serve their God and be happy, whatever. And then I think making Gregory Hines' character, in my opinion, I felt like he was more helpful than Denzel Washington.
Yeah, I agree.
They should have made him like just a straight up villain then, who in the end sees the error of his ways.
He's definitely underutilized in this film too, because Gregory Hines is great, you know, and
yeah, Gregory Hines is great. So the cast is spectacular, but just miscast. Yes. Like I just don't. Of course.
Well, and then we didn't even mention the lawyer, Sherry Headley.
Oh,
from
that's
Coming to
right, from
America.
Coming to America.
But it was just funny because you were just watching a Black Blasphemy.
Oh, I want to shout out. There's a YouTube channel, I believe, called All Deaf, and I watch it a lot. They do a lot of like roasting. It's all comedy, but they have a series called Black Blasphemy where they have a panel of black people who are usually comedians making like blasphemous statements
Towards the black community.
to the black community, like white people's Thanksgiving food is better than black people's food.
And then the person on the
And then one of them has to guess who said that
it,
shit.
yeah.
Or like Friday's not a funny movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, they had one of the Black Blasphemy statements was I've never seen Coming to America.
Yeah, but the two that had seen it were
They didn't know.
They were like, Lisa, we don't know that actress's name from
Well,
Coming
her
to
name
America.
is
Sherry Headley.
So shout out to Sherry Headley.
She had nothing to do in The Preacher's Wife. I did learn, looking her up though, there's a sequel to Belly.
Oh, and it's called
Belly 2, I forget that Millionaire Boys Club, I think.
Oh, and there's another movie we might have to review called
Bitch Lover.
Bitch Lovin' or Bitch.
Yeah, it's from 2020. What a terrible
That was
title.
random. Well, we're running out of time, but that was The Preacher's Wife. What else do you want to say about it?
I think that Mo Hart should have played Courtney B. Vance in Snatch Game.
He could have, although Billy Porter's a more popular reference.
But and then there's the finale is Denzel asks God to, I guess, craft an image of himself as the angel on their Christmas tree.
Oh yeah.
And I said that shit looks like Papa Legba.
Oh my god. But anyway, I would give.
Oh, and Sissy Houston.
Sissy Houston is in the background looking like
Mugging,
mugging like she did when she was singing with Aretha a few years ago.
So that's entertaining. Notably, this was nominated for Best Score from Hans Zimmer, who Hans Zimmer is a very notable composer. I really like his score in Chow.
Whitney's rendition of "Joy to the World" is one of my favorites.
Sure.
Definitely one of my favorite Christmas songs. And then, I don't think the music's that great.
I don't think so either. But it was lensed by Miroslav Ondrček, a Czech cinematographer who I believe shot A League of Their Own for Penny Marshall, but is best known, I think, for shooting several Milos Forman films. Including Hair.
What would you give this film?
2.
I would give it 2 out of 5. You have like 2 minutes left.
I have nothing more to say.
Oh, well, this week what's going on?
Films. As in what's... Oh, we got a couple of April is a Chris Pine double feature month.
Oh, because we just watched The Contractor.
And I saw All the Old Knives this week.
I do like Chris Pine.
Yeah, we have a Zac Efron thriller, I think.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called Gold. That's
Well, I'll definitely watch that.
Another Ryan Reynolds comedy,
Ugh.
The Adam Project.
Well, he's my friend, so I'll watch it.
And I think something that sounds interesting, I think it's a horror film called Ultrasound. That will all be this week.
About a demonic fetus.
I'm sure it'll be something pregnancy related. Yeah.
Yeah, just more movies.
Uh-huh.
No major events coming up.
I don't think so.
No. We might go to the Eagle tonight.
Yes. What's next week?
Noted Nasty Gay Bar.
The Lost City, that Sandra Bullock movie, that screening that's coming up too.
Oh. All right, well, I'll bid you adieu.
Ta-ta.
Bye.
Huh.